Okay, module 4. Okay, how to do a safe system assessment. Some of you are probably saying to yourself, why, Ken? Why did we not just start with how to do a safe system assessment? Well, the answer for that is that you can't do a safe system assessment without understanding the principles of the safe system, getting your head around exposure likelihood and severity allocation, starting to have a think about that supporting treatments and primary treatments. And, really we needed to sort of pull a whole lot of puzzle pieces together before we can get to actually the mechanics of writing these up and the like. So we've covered off the safe system nicely. I think the principles of the safe system have been really well covered, and you've proven a good understanding of that with the quizzes and your commentary, and understanding that human vulnerability and the shared responsibility. We spent a good amount of time on that exposure and likelihood and severity, and you'll see why it's so important in that safe system assessment methodology. We focused a little bit more on that exposure to try to get people clear with that in their mind. I think this session is going to help you even further in that. The severity, we talked a lot about the biomechanics of injury of crashes, how much force the human body can handle in different crash types, how much is absorbed by the vehicles, how much is redirected, and how much is then imparted on the occupants of the vehicles or the pedestrian or the cyclist or the motorcyclist, and understanding that. We talked about that, broad safe system threshold speeds there of 70 for head-on, 50 for side impact, 30 for pedestrian and cyclist crashes, motorcyclists sort of probably, coming somewhere in between depending on the crash configurations. I showed you this earlier on, and it's probably making more and more sense as the modules progress, that we have all these different crash types down this side, and we have the speed, the bullet vehicle speeds there, and then we've got some sort of gradient of how severe we expect them to be. We've got the numbers here, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. You'll see me use those in this session. So let's get ourselves into it. Don't forget to count your wallies, of course, and I will give you a break at half time or so, and near the end of the session, we will jump into the learning management system and show you exactly how you get the assignment and go about doing it. So we'll allocate a good bit of time to that. But we do have time for any questions that anybody has along the way. So feel free to pop them into the Q&A or chat, and Loretta will feed those through to me. Now, we may or may not actually have a little poll here that may come up, which I think is just to gauge people's sort of level of experience with safe system assessments, remembering you don't have to have done anything at all. And in fact, the first option there is nothing. Safe system, what now? Heard of the term, but don't know much more. Had one done on one of my projects, done a safe system assessment, or I live, breathe, and eat safe system assessments. So be interested in that. That's, just for me to gauge where the group's sitting at and how much sort of they might have dug into the specific safe system assessment process. Oh, yeah, Loretta's nicely put in there for those who can't see. The poll has popped in the question, and you don't need to go too much into detail on it. I think we'll just give that another couple of seconds. 3, 2, 1. Let's end that poll, and we will display the results. Okay. So most people sitting in heard the term, didn't know too much more about it. We've had a few people have had them done on their projects, so that's good for people in that one. Somebody's been in there, rolled the sleeves up and had a go at one, so that's great. And we do have a safe system. What now? Nobody's living and breathing and eating safe system assessments yet, but maybe that's your future, hey? Okay, let's get rid of that poll. Thank you, and let's jump into it. Well, some of you may have then seen or at least be aware that the Austroad Safe System Assessment Framework is a document. It was released in late 2016, so it's been around a few years. The real reasoning behind this document was that there was lots of industry chatter and discussion about, we can't do that. It's not safe system, or we only do safe system project, or this program will only have safe system solutions and the like. And there was a lot of debate about that. Well, what is that safe system? Is it not safe system? I don't know, and in the end, people said, well, we need some way to measure. We need some sort of assessment. And Austroad's got together with and put this process together. Now, I was on the working group for this. I wasn't one of the authors of this, but had some involvement in it being shaped. And there was lots of fun debate and questions within that. But it was established fairly early on that, as we've talked about, really safe system is not a binary concept. We know something aligns well with safe system principles or doesn't align so well. And so those sort of points around, that's not safe system, doesn't really make that much sense. So what I'll be taking you through is replicated in this document, or about 95% of it. Since the release of this document and the amount of safe system assessments done in industry, there's been a discovery of some of the things in there that don't quite work in practice. Remember, when this was invented, it had not been done, okay? So now we're getting some improvements. Austroad is looking at doing another version of this and getting some updates, rectifying a few of those. But we had a discovery that, since that, some of the jurisdictions released their own specific guidance. And what we'll be talking about is, yes, the Austroad stuff. Then we'll be talking more about the Victorian and South Australian guidance, which is actually very consistent with what New South Wales and Queensland do as well. New Zealand's done their own safe system audit guidelines, slightly different. So I'll put that aside. We don't have, pretty sure we don't have any New Zealanders in this group. There's a separate sort of course of their own with slightly different guidance. But let me jump all the way to one of the end outputs of a safe system assessment. So this is part of the report. People will be looking for this sort of diagram. And what this is a representation of alignment with safe system principles for different crash types. So we have the red bar there. The red bars here, that is the existing conditions of whatever we're looking at. This happens to be an intersection. That's how it is now. Then there were 3 different design options. There was one design option which was a roundabout. There was a design option that was a modified T intersection with a set of traffic signals, and there was a conventional T intersection with a set of traffic signals. Okay, and what we can then see is for run-off road crashes, head-on crashes, intersection crashes, other pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, we can see whether things get better, and better would be for the score to go down. So lower scores are better. So we see the roundabouts doing well there and there. All right, but the roundabouts are not doing so well in this one with cyclists. So you can immediately see, how is risk sort of changing when we upgrade these? And are we eliminating risk, or are we really dropping it down? So what I want to do now is take you through, okay, how do we actually build this? How do we create this? How do we get those numbers in there? The first thing you do when asked to do a safe system assessment on a project design or the like, they say, okay, we got it. We're looking at a new intersection. We want to, we're playing with some options and we've got some concepts done. Can you do a safe system assessment on it? You would ask a lot of questions to gather understanding of the context of this project. Now, Austroads, in the Safe System Assessment Framework, laid out these sort of prompt questions. They're, what's the reason behind the project? What's the function of the road? Speed environment? What road users are there? Do you know the movement and place categorization? Vehicle composition? So you, as a safe system assessor, are gathering this context, understanding the project, their objectives, the existing environment, gathering information. What I practically will often do with a safe system assessment team is we will, get asked to do a safe system assessment, and then I will send these questions to the project team. I'll say, great, before we get started, we want to gather some understanding of the context. Can you give us any information you can around these questions? Can you send us any planning studies, any reports, any traffic studies, any other documents? Answer any of these questions. Help us gather an understanding of the context of the project. And yeah, that's a kind of easy way to get the ball rolling. Sometimes you might have a meeting with them. You say, hey, well, let's have a catch up. And here's some of the questions we'll be asking in that catch up, and they can talk to them live. So you've got your understanding and your context. And then one of the early and first things, the big meat of a safe system assessment is the safe system assessment matrix, the matrix, we call it. Could be called like a table, but we call it a matrix. And you'll notice in the matrix there, it has 3 rows. The rows are exposure, likelihood, and severity. Wonderful. Because that's what we've been banging on about for the last 4 modules, talking about exposure and likelihood and severity. But across the top there, so the columns we see, they are all crash types. So we see there we've got the run-off road crashes. We've got head-on crashes. And we've got intersection crashes. These are for vehicles. Okay, so this is where a car or a truck runs off the road. This is where a car or a truck leaves their lane and head-on crashes with another car or truck. And this is an intersection where a vehicle is making a turn at an intersection or crossing an intersection, and they strike another vehicle within the intersection. Over here, we have pedestrian crashes, cyclist crashes, and motorcycle crashes. Now, these are any crash types that involve the pedestrian being the one that's injured, or the cyclist being the one that's injured, or the motorcyclist being the one that's injured. So if we had, for example, an intersection, and we're worried about pedestrians crossing here and being struck by vehicles maybe turning out here, that's in the pedestrian column where we account for that. Even though it happens in the in the area of the intersection, it's a pedestrian one because the pedestrian's being the one that's injured. If, just to gather further clarity on this, because it's an important way, for us thinking about our assessments, we take that intersection again and we talk about a vehicle. We're worried about vehicles running off the road and hitting a power pole that's close to the intersection, worried about that, that's actually a runoff road that we're worried about, not an intersection. Again, even though it happened at the intersection. So anybody who deals with DCAs or RUM codes, so DCA, definition for classifying accidents, or a RUM code, a road user movement code, they are codes for crash types, right? Crash studies, we often use a lot of codes for these different types of crashes. Think of these as crash codes, crash types. So, you know, in a lot of jurisdictions, the 100 series are pedestrian crashes. So this is all of your 100 series: pedestrian struck by car, pedestrian, struck by car turning, pedestrian struck mid-block emerging from behind cars, pedestrian struck by bicycle, pedestrian struck by tram. You know, it's all like in this 100 code, but it's all pedestrians. Runoff road, you know, runoff road to the left, runoff road to the right, are all within that that particular code, and it doesn't matter if it happened within the vicinity of an intersection. It's that runoff road crash categorization. Okay, so the other category here, other, is to deal with any crashes your concern may happen that do not fit into any of those other ones in a way that you're comfortable with. So the most common other crash types we see out there are crashes with animals, crashes with side swipes with other vehicles, crashes at railway level crossings, crashes, rear ends. Rear ends are, you know, a bit of a unique one in this assessment framework. If the rear end crash happens mid-block, not related to queuing from an intersection, then it's another crash. But if it's queuing from an intersection, we just categorize it in with intersections, actually. What other? Emerging from driveways in the other crash category, because you're saying, well, that's not really an intersection. So we're going to categorize it in the other. Okay. So the questions come in there, runoff road. I'm not sure exactly what we're in other. No, runoff road's got its own categorization there directly. Yeah. So what they like, some people might ask, why did they pick these categories? Well, these actually represent the bulk of the death and serious injury across Australia and New Zealand. They're actually, you know, very dominant. Then the others represent a very small amount of death and serious injury, but, you know, and it's a conglomeration of lots and lots of different things. Okay, so let's start with exposure. And what we're trying to do is put a justification of our assessment and then a score in each of the cells of the matrix here. So we might have a road and it might have 4,000 vehicles a day. So we've got 4,000 vehicles that are exposed to runoff road crashes. Right? But we want this number to be between 0 and 4. So 4,000 is too big a number. So what we need to do is go to what we call a scoring reference sheet. And I've replicated this straight out of the Austroads guide. And what we see here is all these scores between 0 and 4. And then we've got exposure and likelihood and severity. So let's start with exposure. And let's go maybe up to a 4. Okay. So what is a 4? Volume of vehicles that might be involved in a particular crash type are high, or the road is very long. Therefore, exposure is high. For run-off road, head-on, and other crash types, AADT is greater than 10,000 vehicles a day. Now, that's the key bit. That is your key bit of information. Greater than 10,000 vehicles a day. For pedestrian, cyclist, and motorcycle crash types, greater than 100 units a day. But we've said it's 4,000. So is 4,000 greater than 10,000? No, it's not. So we'll go down. We'll say, okay, what about this one? For run-off road, head-on, and other crash types, AADT is between 5,000 and 10,000 vehicles a day. So our annual average daily traffic is between 5,000 and 10,000 vehicles a day. Again, not quite where the road we've got is. Let's go with a 2. For run-off road, head-on, between 1,000 and 5,000. So that's where we sit. So you simply take that score of 2, and that then goes in here. Now, we go to the next one and we say head-on crashes. What's our exposure to head-on crashes? Well, unless we have some sort of like concrete barrier system down the middle of the road, or, big physical barrier system down the middle of the road, that's going to be the same as the run-off road, because the same number of vehicles are exposed to running off the road as they are to a head-on crash. So we'll put a 2 in there. Now, some people want to say that that's 0 if there's a median, just like a grassed median. No, not the case. Okay, you're still exposed to head-on crashes, just less likely if there's that bit of space in between. Then we go to intersection crashes. Oh, sorry, Loretta, you got a question?
Well, I just thought while you're on head-on collisions, there is a question on that. So if 2 vehicles are traveling and both were traveling at the same speed and they have a head-on collision, is the safe speed for both vehicles 35 kilometers per hour?
No, so it's actually 70 kilometers per hour for each vehicle's speed is that safe system threshold speed. The closing speed would be like 140 kilometers an hour. What we think about though is the force of the or force imparted on the individual occupants, which is equivalent to a crash of 70 kilometers an hour, even though like the other vehicles coming in at 70 kilometers an hour as well. But you think about that same mass vehicle, same speed, head-on crash, the driver or the passenger will go from 70 kilometers an hour to 0. So, Loretta, I think we got a Mythbusters episode that crashes cars into each other and into brick walls and things to sort of articulate that, which we might put into the learning management system if we haven't already.
We do have it in module 1. In the LMS, of course.
Yeah, great. So you can watch that. So the question in there has been around relative velocity. Well, the way that would play out would be only if you were in a tiny little smart car that's traveling at 70 kilometers per hour and you collide into a big truck that's going 70 kilometers an hour and your vehicle is pushed back at 70 kilometers per hour, and then you've got that relative force double, if that makes sense. So the other way would be if you were magically standing in the middle of that and got crushed between the two. That would also be that extra force. But we're really thinking about the individual occupants. Watch the Mythbusters, because of course, like any Mythbusters episode, they explain it clearly and then they crash cars to prove it with accelerometers in it. Okay, so we're just dealing with the exposure to crashes. And it's, you can see there how clearly it is aligned with just the numbers of vehicles. And you just go to the scoring reference sheet and you see what it is. It's fairly clean cut. For intersections, the one little trick to remember is that you add each approach. Okay, so we were just talking about run-off road and head-on, but all of a sudden we've got it an intersection now. So we've got 4,000 vehicles on this bit, but now we've got this side road, and maybe it's got 2,000 vehicles coming out the side. Now, what we do is we add there. We add. So we've got 4,000 and we add 2,000 to get 6,000. And then we go to our scoring reference sheet. And 6,000, you can see, actually sits up in that 3 category, doesn't it? Because it's between 5 and 10,000. So this is where we might put a 3 in. Then we're thinking about what crash types, and say we're thinking about side swipes and the like. Let's go a 2 there. And then we get to pedestrians. So how many pedestrians are crossing at this location? And if it's a popular urban area, it's going to be very much 4 for pedestrians. If it's out in the middle of nowhere, it might be a 1 for pedestrians. So let's talk about, in a hypothetical here, maybe we're out in a rural area and we don't have many pedestrians at all. Maybe very occasional pedestrian crossing. Maybe it's less than 10 per day, we think. So that's a 1. Now, cyclists, same, it's a rural area. We think it's less than 10, so we're going to go a 1. And motorcyclists, we tend to use, without any other information, about 1% of AADT. So that's going to be a 2 there. If it's a popular motorcycle route or you've got data behind this, you can alter that. So these are really, my experience is I often get really good AADT data from the project team, and then I don't get great stuff around pedestrian, cyclists, and motorcyclists. So I have to make some assumptions when I'm out there looking at it. From what I know, I ask them what they think, and we gather this and we set a baseline for the exposure to crashes. I saw something pop in there, I think. Did I?
Yeah, so it was just on the AADT. Does it need to be added of both direction or just one?
Or head-on AADT. Yeah, it's both directions. It's both directions. So, your two-way AADT for an undivided road is your AADT for that exposure, as it is for runoff road.
Thank you. If we can just go over the intersection again, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to erase this so I can explain it again. And this is good. I want people to get this clear in their mind, because you're going to actually have to put this into practice and you'll be marked on it. So let's make sure you're clear on it. If we have a road, it's got an intersection, the volume of vehicles on this road is 4,000. The volume of, we've got a volume down here, which is 2,000. We take the 2 and we add them. So 2,000 plus 4,000 equals 6,000. And we take that 6,000 for intersection. That's what we say the volume of for the intersection is. And you look then at your scoring reference sheet and you say, okay, where are we seeing 6,000? 6,000 sits in there. 6,000 sits in there as a 3. So you're adding the volumes of the intersecting roads, the AAD of the intersecting roads. Now, you don't need to get so precise of analyzing and like turn movements and trying to minus off, because you can see the broad brushness of these categories. We're talking anything below 1,000 is a 1. Anything 1,000 to 5,000, 5 to 10, above 10, big broad brush, big broad brush categorizations there. What if it's a 4-leg intersection? Okay. Yeah, no, that's a fair question, because we actually, yeah, okay, let's do a 4-leg intersection. I did a 3 to try and make it a little bit sort of clearer, but let's do that. So 4,000. Okay, if you had a traffic count there and you had a traffic count there and a traffic count there, for example, which you may or may not have, you're going to take, yeah, you'd actually, so then that goes to 3,000 for some reason, because 1,000 of those turn, except for some turn out, it's starting to get a bit complex here. 2,000 and then 1,000. I don't know if that'd actually work. Hard to work out. But what you would do there is you take the higher of the two. So it'd be 4,000 again plus 2,000 to get to your 6,000. If that makes sense. So you're trying to look at the maximum numbers through this intersection is really what you're aiming at. Yeah. We do have a fact sheet on this as well. Somebody mentioned those fact sheets earlier, because as you're getting your head around it, everybody was trying to get their head around it for quite a while now. And it's not well described in Austroads or in any of the jurisdictional supplements. So we decided at least the interim, we'd put out this fact sheet. But I think you've got your head around it now.
Just one more question there.
So to clarify, for intersections, the ADT is taking the sum of the two-way ADT on all legs and not just the approaches. The matrix only mentions the approaches. Yes, no, you're correct, Kevin. It's that sum. Good. There's the fact sheets that's popped in. That might help clarify a little bit, but I think you're all sort of getting your head around it there. Add up so to get the highest score you would through the intersection. So once we've done that, we want to look at, okay, what is the likelihood of crashes and how do we put a score between 0 and 4 for the likelihood of crashes? Actually, before I jump into that, I want to talk about exposure and 0. Like, how do we say that there is an exposure of 0? Well, for a road, there may not be any intersections. If there are no intersections, then the exposure to intersection crashes is 0. If there are no pedestrians, the exposure is 0. If there's no cyclists or no motorcyclists, there is 0. If there is a physical, like, strong median barrier there, usually a concrete barrier system, there's no exposure to head-on crashes. It's virtually impossible to head-on crash. Runoff road's a very hard one to ever get a 0 exposure, because you can always run off the road. Because if you leave the road, even if there's a barrier there, you hit the barrier, that's a runoff road crash. But let's go to likelihood. So you can see there, we're thinking about what is the chance of a runoff road crash? What's the speed that vehicles are traveling? What's the geometry? Is it a windy road? Is it a straight road? Does it go up and down? Does it have shoulders? Are there sealed shoulders? Are there drop-offs? Where are the barriers placed? What's the offset to different hazards? What's the delineation? Has it got good edge lines? Has it got audio tactile edge lines, etc.? Could be anything. Has it got good lighting? Is there potholes? You name it. And what you actually do in this is you dot point all these different factors that you're thinking about. Things that you think are changing your decision about what score should go into the likelihood of run off road. Similar to what you did for your assignment in module 2, where you were looking at an intersection and saying, okay, this factor and this factor and this factor. Well, you do that for lots of factors. And then you go to the scoring reference sheet and you say, all right, what score should I give this? I wonder what a 4 would be for likelihood. This is our. So the likelihood of individual road user errors leading to a crash is high given the infrastructure in place. E.g., high approach speeds to a sharp curve, priority movement control filtering right turn across several opposing lanes, high speeds. So you see you've got some serious factors in there that are making it more likely for a crash to happen. And I save that 4 usually for your inherent, like, fundamental issues. Sharp curve, fast approach, sharp curve, not great delineation, adverse crossfall. It's very likely that people are going to run off the road at this location. A 3. What's a 3? It is likely that a given crash type will occur. Oh, gee, we haven't got a lot of information there. What about a 2? It is unlikely that a given crash type will occur. And a 1, highly unlikely. Okay, so we're not given a lot of guidance here. And this is because it is really a subjective thing based on you understanding all of that. We have a fact sheet, and I'm sure Loretta will be able to dig it out, that deals with how do you think about likelihood of crashes? And the answer to this is you think about it from a relative perspective. Okay, this intersection that I'm analyzing relative to all the other intersections out there is more likely to have crashes or less likely to have crashes, helping you calibrate somewhere between that 1 and 4. Now, a 0 in likelihood, there's only minimal chance that a given crash type will occur for an individual road use error given the infrastructure in its place. Only extreme driver behavior or substantial vehicle failure could lead to a crash. Okay, we don't use 0 very often for likelihood, almost never, because we're thinking about human just failures that happen all the time. So people will run red lights, they will fall asleep, they will be distracted, they will use their phone, they will be doing all these things. The likelihood is lower if we've got great infrastructure in place, but we're not eliminating the chance of a crash. Okay, so you get, and I hope that sort of helps a bit there. But we then go back and we say, okay, all of these things on this road, and I think it's maybe a 2 here. It's a 2 because I think it's unlikely that a given crash type will be there. It will take place because I think they've got medium speed. The geometry is good. So, they've got some sealed shoulders there. Hazards are set back a bit from the road. It's got decent line marking, but the shoulders aren't sealed, the edge line, the hazards are only 2 meters off the edge of the road, and you factor all of that in and you come to what you're comfortable with. Then you do the same for head-on. Okay, maybe then for head-on, well, you've got the same road environment, don't you? But there's less offset, but then you're taking into account, funnily enough, actually in here, AADT appears again because your chance of hitting another vehicle is based on the volume. Your volume and exposure is based on the volume as well. A little unique, but I'm going to put a 2 in there as well. Intersection, well, you'd be thinking about, is it giveaway controlled? Is it signalized? Is it a roundabout? Has it got splitter islands? Has it got good lighting? Is there advanced warning? What's the speed through there? We've got multiple lanes turning. What is it? And you come up with whatever you think associated with that. maybe a 3. You think, okay, it's a giveaway control. There's a see-through effect I'm worried about. It's not well, like you don't see it that well coming up. And then other, side swipes, rear ends, coming out of driveways, animals, whatever it is you decide. I've got 2 on that. Pedestrians. Okay, well, there are hardly any pedestrians there. However, we've already accounted for that in exposure. So we're saying, okay, well, there's no pedestrian crossing facilities. The lighting's poor. They've got big, wide areas to cover. Speeds are medium, but there's really nothing there for them. So I'm going to go with a 3. It's likely. The reason I'm not going with a 4 is just because that speed was down a bit. And there's a bit, and it's got clear straight sight lines to this crash. It's hypothetical thing I'm thinking about, but you might have gone a 4. And then you go cyclists. Okay, are there cycle lanes? Is there a separated path for them? Is it clear and the like? And then, maybe you got 3 there. And a motorcyclist, you're thinking about all these crash types, intersection, head-on, everything like that. So you tend to go with at least the highest of the others, but maybe even higher. So we'll go a 3 on that. So you can see how I've quickly sort of put some numbers there, but you have to justify it with some words and some dot points about factors that you've identified. You can't just do what I did and quickly pop a number in. I'm doing that for the purposes of demonstrating how the matrix works. Then we get into severity. Now, so exposure is quite clear cut, because if you've got a volume, you simply go to the scoring reference sheet and you put the number in. The only sort of judgment with exposure is when you don't have those volumes given to you. If pedestrians or cyclists, or sometimes you don't actually have traffic volumes, you've got to make an assumption. Likelihood is quite subjective. You are using all of your knowledge and your skills and your judgment and everything. You're sort of thinking about all of these things and making a call on it. Severity is a mix. There's judgment, but you've got that graph and that thing to look at with the severity of injury. So you'll be thinking about the speed, the roadside features. Is it barriers? Is it frangible light poles? Is it or are they trees? Is it big cleared areas? Is it drop-offs? What's the severity going to be? For intersections, you can see there, you'd be thinking about impact angles, you'd be thinking about speeds. You sometimes think about percentage of heavy vehicles, because if it's going to be a lot of heavy vehicles, severity might be higher for those incidents because they've got more mass. If we go to the scoring reference sheet, you can sort of see there what a 1 is. Should a crash occur, it is highly unlikely that it will result in a fatality or serious injury to any road users involved. Kinetic energies are fairly low during the crash event, or the majority are effectively dissipated before reaching the road user. What does that mean? Basically like a barrier or something, because that dissipates energy before it reaches the road user, or a big cushion, like a crash cushion, a crash attenuator, or some things like that. We go up a bit further, we see maybe like a 4. Should a crash occur, is highly likely that it will result in a fatality or serious injury. Kinetic energies are high enough to cause fatal or serious injury, unlikely to be dissipated before reaching the road user. But as I said, to make your life easy on this, we've given you the table here to help you along with that thinking. We stress, though, you're going to need your professional judgment with this. This is just a generic bit of trying to help. What would a 4 be? What would a 0 be? How do you make that sort of judgment call? And you do that then for your all of these. So maybe for your your run off road, you're putting a 3. For your head on, you might put a 2, because, we know run off road crashes are worse than head on crashes. Intersection, well, we might put a 4, because we're thinking right angle, speed well above the 50. Others, we might put a 1, because we're thinking about side swipe crashes maybe. Pedestrians, well, they're going to be a 4 and a 4, because these are our vulnerable road users. And motorcyclists are a 4 as well. Again, you'll justify it, you'll think about it, you'll look at the graph, you'll make a judgment call on all of this yourself. So we've now got all of these numbers in the cells of the matrix. And the next thing we do is we multiply. So we do 2 times 2 is 4, times 3, so we've got 12 there. And I'm going to draw a big line down here. Okay, and then we've got 2 and 2. So we've got 4 and we've got 8. So you can see how we're doing that. 9. So what have we got? 36. And we've got 2. And we've got 12. And we've got 12. It's hard to do here. Running out of space. So what do we got here? 12, so we've got 24. Is that right? Yeah. So you can see there we've got a score for each crash type. You can add those up then if you wanted to get a whole score for your existing conditions or your project. You add along the bottom, and that gives you a final score out of 448, which I've written over the logo there. You can't see anything. Each of these scores is out of 64. So I've made a real mess of that slide there with numbers, and I want to take you through it. I'm going to give you a break very shortly, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm actually just going to walk you through doing that in a live-ish sort of example, just so you can see a little bit of it. I won't go through every number on it, but you'll be able to see how you create this with some dot points. So let's take 4 minutes, and during that 4 minutes, have a stretch. But if you've got questions on this, pop them in now. But let's get back to it in 4 minutes. Okay. Now let's get back into it. Questions come in there, and a good question at that. So let's give a prize to Michelle for the question. When doing an SSA as a team, does each team member score individually and then average the scores, or assess the scores together by negotiation and until everybody agrees? Well, it is, I suppose, up to you, but the common practice is to sort of agree on it and negotiate it out and work it out together. However, sometimes when you can't agree on it is where you kind of split the difference. And usually people are bouncing between a 2 or a 3 or something like that. And you do have the ability, if you absolutely must, to do a 2.5. You can't go or a 1.5, but you can't go any more precise than a 0.5. And usually 0.5s are just used to split the difference. You really can't. You're not comfortable either way, and that's what it is. So yeah, bit of negotiation, and it's kind of a good part of the assessment process with the team is to be debating that. And we're really starting to analyze the intersection or the length of road and why do you think it should be higher? Okay, what are the factors? And okay, well, let's, delve into that. So well done. So that's the matrix. And we've gone through that. So let's just sort of play one out here. Here's an intersection. It's the existing bit of road. You can see it's give-way controlled intersection. There's a car waiting to come out there on the right-hand side. You can see it's got a bit of a footpath and it's got a bit of a windy road coming into it, some power poles there. And their plan is to make it a roundabout. You can see the roundabout design there. It's a nice level design. But then they're thinking, well, actually, we could make that a modified T intersection with traffic signals. That's another option we could do. It's just on the outskirts of town, so maybe that's a better way to do things. And they go, actually, we could even make that a standard T intersection and make it more configured like that. But which one of these is going to be the best alignment with safe system principles? And for all of these, which other features could we implement to make it even better? So the first thing you do is go all the way back to the existing conditions. So put those designs to the side for now. And you're looking at this and you get a safe system assessment matrix and you fill it out for the existing conditions. Existing conditions. What is currently there? And you can see one filled out here, sort of trimmed down a little bit just to fit on the one slide, but you can see there they've justified their exposure scores. Then likelihood, you can see factors that increase the likelihood, dot point, dot point, dot point. Factors that decrease the likelihood, dot point, dot point, dot point. Increase, decrease, dots, and then a score. Oh, there's a 2.5. And maybe they couldn't agree between a 2 and a 3. So you see, it's not just plonking a score in. It's dot pointing and justifying it, putting your thinking in there. Then they've gone severity. And again, they've gone factors that increase the severity, factors that decrease the severity, dot, 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 dot. And you can see those there, scores. They've got their final scores, added it up, got a score of 118 out of 180.5 out of 448. So you do your existing conditions and you do it, really comprehensively and make sure you're really happy with it because you're going to use that as the basis for assessing the designs. So you then copy that whole thing, all of the words you've put in there, all of the justification and all of the scores, and you copy the whole table and you paste it, and then you get out the design, the first design you're looking at. And that maybe is that design of the roundabout. And then you manipulate your existing conditions based on what the new outcome will be. So you look through and you say, well, have we changed any of the exposures? No, we've got the same number of vehicles going through. We predict. We've got the same number of pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcycles. Nothing's changed from that perspective. So all of our exposure scores stay the same. But the likelihood of crash has changed. Okay, so some things have been crossed out because they don't exist anymore or they've changed. Some things have been added here in red. Head on, same thing. We've crossed a few things out. We've added a few new things. And you can see when the scores have changed, we've made those red as well. So you're saying, what's altered from the existing conditions in all of these crashes? And you go through and you do it for all of your crash types and each of the cells, you're crossing bits out, you're adding bits, crossing bits out, adding bits, and you get there to this score for that design. Then you go back and you take your existing conditions one again and you paste it and you look at your next design. And you do your same thing. You're crossing out these bits and you're changing these bits and you're altering this and you're changing these scores, change here, and you go through and you do that for your next design. And then you go back and you take the existing conditions and you paste it. And you keep doing this for as many design options as they give you. If you're only given one design option, right, they go, here's our design, please do a safe system assessment. You do one matrix for the existing conditions and one matrix for that design. You've got all of that then, and you're able to then sort of give scores overall that compare the existing conditions to each of the future scenarios, if they have a roundabout there, or if they have a modified T in signals, or if they have a T intersection signals, those are the scores. So in this, we see that every one of their options has better alignment with safe system principles. None of them are getting us a 0, are they? Right? But they all do some improvement. And then you'd present it in a graph like this as well. So you could give them their overall scores, but you give them a bit more detail. And so you can see now how we've arrived back at that graph that has the different options and the scores and how these are playing out for these 3 options at that intersection. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense to you. The next thing we're going to do, though, is say, all right, every one of those designs, it has the potential to improve our alignment with safe system principles, but there's more that could be done on all of them. We could get lower scores on all of them. So let's make some recommendations for each of those options on how they could do better. And so we want to make recommendations for the roundabout. We might say, well, the roundabout, we're really worried about that, aren't we? And I wonder if there's anything we could do to get that score down, and maybe some of these scores. Some of these are pretty good, but is there anything we might look for that. And so we make these recommendations. We make recommendations on features that we could add to each of those designs. So you might recommend adding a bike facility around the roundabout, or encouraging bikes to use a different route, or you might do bicycle warning signs, or you might, there's all sorts of things you could do to try to make it a bit safer for bikes when it's built. Some of those things are going to be really substantial, really virtually eliminate death and serious injury. Some of them are just going to be things that lessen the likelihood a little bit. And so we actually categorize those, and let's put little handles on these buckets, because there's lots of primary treatments that are available. There's lots of supporting treatments that are available. And you want to think about, okay, I want this to happen. Will that virtually eliminate the potential for fatal and serious injury occurring associated with the foreseeable crash type, or is it just going to lessen the chance of that crash? So a supporting treatment is road planning design considerations improve the overall level of safety associated with foreseeable crash types, not expected to virtually eliminate the potential for it to occur. So non-safe systems, kind of just for terminology purposes, you wouldn't be suggesting non-safe system treatments. Loretta.
Thanks. Just a question that's come through, just going back to sort of the scoring. Is a score of 99 practically the same as 98?
Yeah. I mean, yes. This is not a precision tool, and you shouldn't think about it. think of it as a risk assessment, and it's kind of high risk, medium risk, low risk. So yeah, big sort of granular stuff. When you get like there's a certain advantage to us having these numbers, like 118.5 out of 448, because people like take it seriously. They're looking at it. It looks quite analytical. The reality is, 118, 115. It's all in the same general ballpark. That's got enough granularity to all of the scoring that you wouldn't say that that's fundamentally any different. You're looking for those big step changes. So good question. Thank you. So we need to be able to categorize our finding, like our recommendations. And what I'm going to do is show you in the learning management system a really, I suppose, easy way to do this, because this is quite a confusing thing for a lot of people. What are primary treatments? What are supporting treatments? We're giving you some definitions. Does that help? Well, we're actually going to give you some treatments and tell you whether they're primary or supporting. But the thing is, in a safe system assessment, you can have like multiple primary treatments. It's not like primary is your number one. They're all primary. And you could have multiple supporting treatments, or you theoretically could just only have supporting treatments, because think of them as a bucket. I pulled that one out of the primary treatment bucket. So we've done hang on, let me just answer that question that I saw pop up, because I think it's relevant to that. If primary is not feasible, do we still nominate it? Okay. So first of all, safe system assesses, like, in pure theoretical sense, feasibility is not our concern. Okay. Practically, of course, you can't just be absolutely ridiculously wild, like local intersection, grade separation. Like, people, well, that's ridiculous. But what we want to do is be push, challenge. So, like, I don't want you going, I don't reckon that's feasible to raise that intersection, right? I would rather you suggest it and let them say, no, we can't for these reasons, right? Our role is to push for changes, for things to be improved significantly, and safety as the priority. So this is where I find a lot of people coming in at safe system assessors are people, as safe system assessors, are people who have like great knowledge, great background, really strong history in road authorities or consulting, right? And they're making a lot of assumptions on behalf of their client. But I was saying, whoa, do you know that they're not going to consider that? They're saying, I assume you wouldn't. We've never done that in these types of environments. Well, let them make that call. So yeah, push, but don't be ridiculous, if that makes sense. It's hard to draw a definitive line there. So the other thing that happens within a safe system assessment at some point is that we talk about these generic questions. And these are not quantitative. We're not putting numbers to these. We're just putting commentary, ideas, thoughts, and they are prompt questions directly out of the safe system assessment framework, which is, they're generic questions. A lot of them you might say, I don't know, like, got no information, don't know, not relevant, whatever it is, but at least it's started your thinking as a team and you discuss them. Are road users likely to be alert and compliant? And are there factors that might influence this? What are the expected compliance and enforcement levels? Alcohol, drugs, speed, road rules, driving hours. What is the likelihood of driver fatigue? I mean, for that one, like, are you talking about a road project that's out in the middle of nowhere, or are you talking about a very urban, built-up CBD centre where, you know, it's less likely drivers are falling asleep? Can enforcement be conducted safely? That one's been an interesting one because in a lot of projects, you know, the designers haven't thought a lot about the ability to undertake enforcement activities. And so we've had some great success with thinking through that, talking to the police, asking how do you do enforcement here? What would you need? And then alterations to the design can be included to cater for enforcement activities. Are there special road users? So entertainment precincts, elderly, children, on-road activities, distraction by environmental factors. You know, is there a big pineapple there that will distract everybody, or these sorts of things? Then vehicle sort of stuff. What is a level of alignment with the ideals of safer vehicles? Now, that's often one where people just go, I don't know, I don't. The reason that's in there is that the Safe System Assessment Framework is a very scalable, very it can be used in a whole lot of different scenarios. And one of the early sort of visions of how it would be used would be able to be used at mine sites or remote communities or the like, where you'd be looking at their fleet of vehicles and understanding the vehicle features and what safety features have they got in there. So mostly for our intersection designs or our length of road designs that we're looking at, this is a bit of a meaningless question. And that's okay. You don't need to be answering that. Are there factors that might attract a large number of unsafe vehicles? So you'd be looking, you know, maybe is there a quarry in the area or some other thing that you don't expect? Is the percentage of heavy vehicles too high for the design? Are there resources to detect non-roadworthy, overloaded or unregistered vehicles? Can enforcement of those be conducted safely? Has vehicle breakdown been catered for? So that's a good one, you know, with a lot of our motorway jobs or barrier, big lengths of barrier jobs. Are we thinking about that vehicle breakdown? How's that all being managed? Then you go into post-crash care. So this is after crashes happen. You know, are there issues that might influence safe and efficient post-crash care in the event of a severe injury? So congestion, access stopping. You know, often this is around, again, motorways, like congestion. How would you get to crashes in different spots? Do emergency and medical services operate as efficiently and rapidly as possible? Is this in the middle of nowhere again? And we're going to have long periods there. Is this up on a mountain? And interesting, some safe system assessments in New Zealand, and there was this question sort of elicited a lot of discussion around how long it takes to get there, and discussions with the emergency response people. This is up in some of the mountain areas, and they said, yeah, it takes a long time. And they said, oh, well, what about the helicopters that get up there? And they said, well, closest helicopter landing area is, you know, and they pointed it out. So sort of part of this assessment suggested some helicopter landing areas in more strategic places along the route to be able to extract parties quicker. Bit of a different take on our road safety there. And Perro's put in there, you know, same problem in the Northern Territory. Absolutely, like some huge distances to cover, and events can be many, many hours before the extraction and medical services are there, and the severity of injury is way higher. So some open thinking within these assessments of how we might help. Often we don't have we don't have the ability in the project to do anything about it, but we're thinking about it. Is there anything we could do? You know, are other road users, emergency response teams protected during a crash event? That's more, again, likely to be motorway related stuff. Are drivers provided correct information? Is there reliable information via radio VMS? Is there provision for e-safety, cooperative ITS, safety communication technology? Again, that one I've only ever really played out at assessing like where was it? Tunnels. Big one on a tunnel. And okay, well, what's the tunnel doing? How's the system working there? What if there's an incident in the tunnel? How are we monitoring the tunnel? All of those sorts of things, wider than usually what we're looking at. So they're prompt questions. Like, take that as just prompting your thinking. They may feed into the matrix. They may pop out with other recommendations and ideas. You just work through them. Okay, I think we're shortly going to take you into your assignment because I've been through it. And the best way to learn something like this is to roll your sleeves up and do a safe system assessment. Have a crack at it. The report itself, well, we're lucky these days because we've got templates to use. Different governments have put out templates. They're all the same. They're all based very much on each other. So we've got consistency across Australia and New Zealand really on how to do it. There's some stuff that should be included. But as I say, if you follow any of the templates, and we're going to give you a template, you'll be covering off all of that. And so what we're going to do, I'm shortly going to ask Loretta to take you through the learning management system, show you where your assignment lives. But we are going to give you a design of an upgrade to an intersection close to your house or your office or whatever address you gave us. So you will be looking at that. You'll be given a template, safe system assessment document, and there will be yellow highlighted sections like you can see on the screen, and that is what you will be working on. There will be some non-highlighted sections, and you don't need to do that. That's we're trying to streamline this assignment activity to keep it as short in time as possible. But you will go through and you will actually do a bit of a safe system assessment on this design that we've provided you. Now, we are actually going to ask you to go to the site, physically get out there, have a look at it. Remember, you're going to do an assessment of the existing conditions, and you're going to do an assessment of the design that they're going to change that intersection. So when you're out there, what your purpose is to look at the design, look at how it's going to, change things, look at how it's going to tie in with the existing, look at how the area is being used from a land use perspective. Are there lots of pedestrians? Are there cyclists? And get a real feel for it. But what we don't need you to do is things like measure lane widths or, be out there standing in the road for a long time or anything like that. We've risk assessed all the sites just to make sure, okay, these can be done very safely from an occupational health and safety perspective. You don't need to put yourself in any danger. But we require you to wear a high-vis vest, to stay off the road. Don't be standing out on the road there for a long time. Don't be a hazard to others. Don't park in an area that could cause a trouble to another road user. So park. There's plenty of places to park safely at all these sites. Away, stand back, observe, and just look at the site. We've got a safe work method statement for you, and we ask that you look at it and you confirm that you will do your part, that you will act safely out there. It's pretty simple stuff you're agreeing to, like you're not going to go out there when you're intoxicated. We don't want you going out there at night. So we've decided as part of at least the course, we don't need you to be out there at night. In a real safe system assessment, you may elect to go out there at night. That's up to you. Road safety audits require that often. Safe system assessments don't have that as a specific requirement, but certainly for this training exercise, you're not out there at night. And, there's other bits and pieces which are, I think, are fairly common safety requirements for sites. So you'll have a look at that, and I will show you that in the learning management system shortly. So I'm going to hit stop. I'll take any questions now, and then we'll dive into the learning management system, take you through it, and then hopefully give you 15 minutes or so to do your quiz and download your stuff and get yourself ready to go. Okay.
Excellent. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. All right. I will take you to obviously module 4 today. So module 4, and we'll just go through everything that needs to be done and how to upload your assignment. So Ken did mention the safe work method statement. So ensure that you click on there, have a read through, and also ensure that you tick the boxes that you do agree after you've read that statement. The next thing there is the quiz. So of course, just clicking on the quiz and filling that out. And lastly, when I go back, completing your assessment. So once you click on here, you'll see a list of PDFs. I'll just quickly point out because I had a question. So the PDFs, you'll see your name in brackets, and that's the site that you've been allocated. If for whatever reason the address is not suitable, because sometimes some people give us an address and it's their work address, but you know they live quite far away, totally fine. Just get in touch with us at training and we'll allocate you a new site. So I did just send someone a message. So feel free to get back in touch with me and we'll give you a new site. What you'll need to do, of course, is open the template because that's your main assignment that you need to fill in. So we'll open that now and have a look. And there's also the graph generator. So as Ken mentioned earlier, all the highlighted sections is what you need to fill out. So scrolling all the way through the document and filling out just the highlighted sections. So inserting your name, etc., and all the way through. And then on the last page, make sure you take a photo of yourself at the actual site so we know you were there. Once you've completed this Word template and your assignment, please save it as a PDF because you do need to upload it as a PDF document. So I'll just show you now how to actually upload it. So once you're in, you click on Add Submission. And quite simply, you can do a drag and drop into the box, or you can upload it using the Add File, and then you save your changes. And that means you've submitted your assignment. So that's pretty much how to access and upload the assignment. And Ken, if you have anything else to add there.
Yeah, no, you've done well. So let's just click on a design. Just pick one at random there, Loretta, just so people can sort of see what we're getting. Okay. Where are we there? Clarendon Street, Mark Street down in, yep. So proposal there. So that's currently an unsignalized intersection. It looks like the proposal there is to signalize it. And so you'll go out there, you'll look at the existing conditions, and you will then, do a matrix on the existing conditions. You'll do a matrix on the constructed one. Looks like hook turns. That's going to be fun. And you can see there that there's volumes in that little bubble. So we've got 12,000 vehicles a day, and then you got 6,800 on the other. So remember, we're adding, and I did that the other day as well. Clicked on it.
I don't know how to get back, actually.
No, it's all right. Don't worry about it.
Cool. If that helps. Yeah.
Oh, genius. Well done. I just abandoned it and closed it all down. And you can see there pedestrians, cyclists. So you might know the area really well and go, no, what are they talking about? There's like 1,000 cyclists that go through there a day. Well, this is for training purposes. We've given you these numbers. You then have to use them in the matrix, regardless of whether you believe them or not. Okay. You see there, motorcyclist volume unknown. Remember from today's session, well, what did I say? About 1% of AADT is a good rule of thumb. So if you go back to the, there, the other thing you've got there is a graph generator. So like this is just us trying to save you that bit of time, as Loretta was pointing out. You could do this yourself. You could make your own graph generator, no worries. It's just an easy way to put numbers in, and it produces that graph down the side there. So you can put a few numbers in. So you see the first tab is when you've got one design option, which is what we're giving you, only the one design option. Second tab has got 2 design options, 3 design options, and you can see there your graph will appear over in there, and you can then copy that, paste it back into the Word document. And that's, feel free to use that for any safe system assessments, or create your own. It doesn't matter. It's very easy to do. If we go back to the Word document again, and maybe, just scroll up to the top there. Yep, good, thank you. We've got rid of the exec summary because that's, we don't want wasting time on that sort of stuff. Did you mention there that if you've got 2 people with the same site? I might have.
I didn't. No, thank you.
So there might be 2 people with the same site, and if you know that person and you want to go out to site together or something like that, or want to do and collaborate on this in one way, we're okay with that. You're going to each have to submit your own assignment, and they can't be the same. So you'll have to come up with your own, wording and that sort of thing. So, we are giving you an individual certificate. So it's not a group assignment activity, but you can collaborate if you want. Just follow through that. Replacing the graph with that graph is going to be near the end, because you've got to score everything first before you can actually create your graph. So and then summarize it in the words above. So there's the matrix. You can see there's some slight little differences to the one I showed, which is the existing conditions. You're going to put a score for existing conditions, and it'll be blank for design 1 in the scoring bit, because there is no design yet. So existing conditions. Then when you copy it and paste it, then you'll put scores in design 1. The reason for that is it's very easy then for our assessors and the like to see the change between the existing conditions and the design. But for the design one, it'll just be left blank. Dot points for lots of different factors, adding up. And in the first one, it'll be the existing conditions total score with no design score. And then the second one, so you copy it and paste it, it'll be the design score as well. Scrolling down a little bit, there's an example. Great. For the existing conditions, you see there's nothing in the design. They've sort of even crossed that out to be sort of very obvious on that, which is good. So there's an example of what we're expecting. It's even got some dot points in there to show you sort of the amount of detail we might expect. Let's keep going down. That's an example then when they've done the design option. So you can see now there's scores filled out in both. We've got bits crossed out, we've got bits added. So we tried to make it easy for you. Examples are there. Then you come up with treatments for consideration. 2 tables. Primary treatments is table 5. Supporting treatments is table 6. So those are ideas to say, okay, they've proposed a set of traffic signals at Market Street, Clarendon Street there. What could we recommend to make that even safer? Is it lighting? That would be a supporting treatment. Is it advanced warning signs? A supporting treatment. Maybe, some other ideas you've got, you just put them in there. There can be lots of different ideas. And then we don't even need you to write a conclusion. So we cross that out. And you take a photo of yourself at the site. You can see me at a site. Where am I there? I'm in New South Wales looking at school speed zones. We just want you to prove to us that you went to the site, because that's part of our sort of training requirement, is you've gone to a site and been through that process. So prove to us that you did. We don't want any other photos. We don't want, like in a real safe system assessment, you'd take lots of photos of the site and you'd put some of those into the report. We don't want that, right? We just want to know you went to the site. And that's it. So just one photo. Be wearing your high-vis vest in that photo as well, please. I think that's it.
Just one question, sorry, just based on that example we brought up earlier in, I think it was Melbourne, Clarendon Street Market. How do we account for trams?
Yeah, so crashes with trams, you would be putting into the other category. That's a really good one for other. Yeah, that's really classic example of the purpose of that one. So I'm just going to show one more thing there, Loretta. I'm just going to jump in the learning management system myself, if that's okay. Are we seeing that? No. Oh gosh.
Yes.
Now, which one are we on?
Safe System Assessment September. Yep, that one.
I've done a few of these courses, as you can see. And what I want to do is show people in the resources, in there, you'll see this document. This is a really important document. It is the actual Austroads Safe System Assessment Framework. Okay, so it's got good information in there. But if I go down to about page 14, I think it is 14 or 15. Yeah, here it is. You'll see here run-off road crashes, treatments. And you can see here, there are primary treatments, flexible roadside barriers, high-quality compacted surface. Then there are supporting treatments. There's two lines of supporting treatments. We used to sort of split them into two different categories, but we basically say one these days. So that's for run-off road. These are the buckets I was talking about. For head-on treatments, here are the buckets: primary, supporting, intersection, other, pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists. That's not covering everything, but it's covering quite a few to get your head around this primary supporting. So I suggest you have a look at that when you're coming up with ideas for treatments and you're putting them in there. I think they're the main ones. There is an example safe system assessment report in there. I'm just wondering what on earth that one is. Oh, it's that actual intersection we were looking at, probably in a bit more detail. So you can have a look at that if you want to get inspiration. And like a few things have been blacked out to not let you know exactly where that was. But you can see there the matrices and the graphs and the information. So that might help you out a little bit as well. Now, a really important couple of final things is, when on earth is this due?
It's due on the 22nd. So basically, we've given you the next week to, go out to the site. The last module will be next Friday, but then you've got another week, I guess, to complete your report and upload your assignment. So the 22nd of September is the due date. So basically 2 weeks from today, which gives you enough time.
And I was going to say on that, we intentionally then now don't see you until Friday next week. And that's a great point for you to ask questions, get clarity. We've got a good amount of time allocated next Friday to answer your questions. Say, okay, I'm doing this assessment of Market Street, and how do I account for trams in this particular scenario? Or where do I fill that out? Or I can't work this bit out. And we can have that discussion as a group. But of course, at any point, you can request a one-on-one bit of coaching. And simply email the training email address, say, oh, I'd like to chat to somebody about this, and we'll organize that meeting for you. So you'll do all of that, and then you'll PDF it. So the due date's in there. PDF your final thing. You'll drop it in there or upload the file, save it. Hey, presto, we are good to go. So
you do have up to 3 attempts as well. So our graders, they're really good. They'll give you so much feedback. If you didn't pass the first one, there is an 80% pass mark. So don't feel like, too stressed about it. If you didn't pass the first one, we'll give you feedback and you've got time to, complete it. Or if you need extensions as well, that's all fine.
So a few questions seem to have come in. I was just showing there is a quiz for today, and I'll deal with those questions. So you see you've got a quiz in for today's session. So you've got a bit of work to do, which is why we're going to give you a good 15, 20 minutes back to try to do that. And I'll just cover off any questions that we haven't done. So would you include crash statistics in the report? Yeah, it's up to you. Like, we tend to do that. It's not like crash history isn't driving the assessment, and you don't, take those as absolute numbers, but sometimes you gain some insights. We pop them in as an appendix usually, but it's not a requirement. Is there a requirement to physically visit the site? And what is the difference between a full and a rapid safe system assessment? So Kevin's jumping away into the next module, where I sort of explain a little bit about the difference between a full and a rapid safe system assessment. And there are some situations where you don't really need to go to site, but the bulk of safe system assessments, you do go to site to get that round understanding. How long does it roughly take to do the assessment report, excluding the site visit? Well, it depends. Like, are you talking? Oh, I'll answer them both. One for the training purposes and the one you're about to do, or one for the real one? I would expect for the training purposes, the one you're going to do, you would be maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours. All right. The real one is more like probably a day worth of, getting things right, writing conclusions, maybe a couple of days. Well, no, a day of just writing it all up and pulling it together. You might be pondering and changing matrices and doing things and, chatting with a team and the like. And then, your site visits above and beyond that. Any other questions or comments?
I think that's it.
I think there was one in the Q&A about a specific site closer to somebody. So
yep.
Loretta will work on that and maybe get in contact with you. Otherwise, we're giving you 20 minutes back now. We always intended to give you some time here because we want you to finish off your quizzes, download that, get your head around it, and be ready to get out there and do it. Don't dilly-dally here. It's something you got to do. Let's knock it off. And then you can relax into the weekend if you've got everything started to be sorted and at least you know where you're going. Loretta, have a lovely weekend.
Thank you. You too. And everyone, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Friday. Good luck with your visits.
Thank you. And of course, get in contact if you need help. Don't sit there feeling stressed about this. Shoot an email through. Say, can I have a catch up? We love helping you out. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.